So here we are. We've created a few shapes. We got the gist of that. We know what the black arrow tool is to move things and the white arrow tool, which allows us to select just particular points. So now the question is, how do you actually really make something? And remember, you keeping your eyes peeled on this, on your layer to make sure you're on the right layer. And so, how do I actually make things that like kind of look more like what I might want them to look like, right? And so, if I grab this shape and just, grab it here, I've got the different options for my fill in like a different places, but there's some other spots you're going to want to use to kind of deal with color. So again, if I come over here to my palettes, you'll notice this one up here that looks like, an old-fashioned artist palette. If you grab that, you'll see there are all these options in here that you can use this, we call it the color picker, to like pick different colors. So that's one way to select colors that you might actually like a little bit more than the ones that just come up here if you click on that. But the other thing you can do is you can click here, and there are all these like different color guides that you can set up that are kind of like, they just give you like nice color combinations from the Adobe kind of like hive mind about how this works. So again, as long as I have it selected, I'm dealing with my fill, I can change those colors around. The one that I like the most is actually this one, which is your swatches. So here, if I grab make sure I have my object selected, and I just double click in here, I have this like kind of color picker over here that I can use to play around with. So if I wanted this person's face to look a little bit less a little less orange, I could just double click the square here because I'm double clicking the fill. Brings up the color picker, and I can like pull that out here and maybe make it a little bit more like, sort of like, Caucasian dude, right? So click on that. So maybe that color is a little bit better for what I'm after here for the face. So do the same thing here. I can just double click the red square. If I wanted like a light blue color, I'd be able to like use the picker to just kind of grab it. And you can see the old color here and the new color. See if I can find it. Click OK. There you go. So now I've got colors, and again, if I need to like park this, I can just close that, and then that's giving me colors that maybe are a little bit closer to what I actually wanted for my design. But all that considered, I still have these shapes that I don't necessarily really love, right? But what we want to do is we want to learn how to make more sophisticated shapes. But the first thing we want to do is understand like layer order and stacking. So if I grab my tool here and I grab this and I just grab it and I overlap it over the top, you'll see that now this object, the kind of beige looking shape, is over this kind of more geometric shape, right? And it's just because Illustrator's assuming I've got stacks of glass, and this is on the bottom, and then this is on a piece of glass above that in the layer above it. So the easiest way I've found to see this is to click here, and you'll see these different objects on the path, and you can even turn their eyeballs on and off if you want to, so to see where they are. And you can see the layer order. So if I wanted the blue square over the top, I could just click and drag it up and drop it over the top. And now the blue square is over this one, right? There's also keyboard shortcuts. So if you control click on an object, you can go to arrange here and you can bring it to the front. So that'll be the very front, or I can go to arrange and I can go to bring or send backwards. And now it's going to push it backwards behind the other object. So this isn't such a big deal when you only have one object, but when you have 50 things on a layer, it can get super confusing about what's in front of the other things. So I often will just go over here and just, again, these twirl downs, these little triangles here, if you twirl them down, they will reveal all of the objects in that layer. So that's why it helps a lot to keep the sketch layer locked so I don't accidentally grab it. And mess around with something I don't need to. Okay, but let's just assume no, I don't like either of those things. So I can just grab these shapes that I made and delete them. So if you select them with the black arrow tool, delete. I can turn my sketch visibility back on. But let's actually try and do this shirt kind of more the way I want it to be, right? So the tool that we would probably want to use here would be this tool called the pen tool. So again, there are all these options here. If you just click and drag the pen tool, click the pen tool, you'll see there's a lot of options underneath. What the pen tool does is the pen tool kind of like creates those Bezier points and like connects them with a fill and the stroke that you tell it to. So this allows you to make like shapes that go on and on forever and ever, and then when you close them like this, that's now one big shape that I can like play around with. I can resize it if I want to this way, but you know, it just grabs this shape, and I just made it with a pen tool. So again, if I don't like that shape, I can delete it. So that's if you use the pen tool with just straight clicking. But if you click and drag, you'll notice it adds those little Bezier curve handles. And now I can start making shapes that do things that are maybe a little bit more curvy. And then if I want it to go back to straight, I can click over here, and there's this anchor point tool. If I click on that, that will convert that anchor tool from one that has these handles on it to one that doesn't have any handles, and it's just a point. So now if I went back to my pen tool and kept going, oops, sorry, I can kind of connect these anchors together, and it'll like keep going. So anyway, that's the gist of how you use the pen tool. So to create my shirt, what I could do here is I could just click on the pen tool and then maybe zoom in a little bit, and then I could just try to get this base blue shape in there by cranking away on the Beziers and sort of trace what I have. I'm just, imagine you're like working with a knife and a piece of blue paper, and you're trying to get this this shape of this shirt, just, you know, like an old-fashioned way that people would have made art like hundreds of years ago, right? So I can just kind of trace these around. Again, if anytime I click and drag, I can add a little curve. You'll see there's some places where maybe it does a little curve and I didn't want it to, but we'll fix that. Okay, so now, you know, turn this off, the eyeballing it off on the sketch. Now I have a little bit more of like my shirt looking form, right? But I can also go in there and adjust this more now with the white arrow tool. So if I grab the white arrow tool, I can go in here now and I can add, I can move those anchors around, right? If I want to change that anchor point, because right now that anchor point is one that's like straight, right? So it's a straight anchor point. I can actually change that to one that has handles by, again, going in here and clicking on the anchor point tool and converting it. And if I click and drag, you'll notice these, now all of a sudden I have some handles that I can use. And then if I go back to the white arrow tool, I can like, you know, I can adjust these. So this one's twisted, so I can flip it back around like that. And like, you're like, if I'm in there and I'm like, oh man, I kind of wish I had another point, I can go over here to the pen tool and I can do the add anchor point tool. And as long as I'm clicking on the path, I can add another couple of points that I can then use the white arrow tool to adjust. And if I wanted those to be to have handles instead of be straight, I could just click and drag on them, right? And now I've got all kinds of control over what's happening in here, and I can change these things around. So the idea would be I could go in and like really try to make this shape of the shirt exactly what I want it to be. And so again, grabbing the white arrow tool is the thing that'll help you do this. And another kind of nice thing to know is if you had a shape where you wanted like a sharp edge on one part and then a curve on another, I can click and drag on it. Again, I'd need to convert that, so click that, go back. So let's see, click and drag, okay. Then go back to the white arrow tool. And then if I want, I can just grab one of the handles and like pull it in like this. And if you can see it, when it hits the path like that, it just becomes a straight edge, but this one retains the curve, which is kind of cool. So you can really subtly get in there and like change your, all the different vectors that you're using. And this is what we're doing, is we're making vector-based art right now. So again, you know, I can add handles or take them away depending. I think the easiest way to do it is always to have a handle and then just kind of tweak it. So I could go in here and kind of keep pushing these things along, making the shirt look the way I want it to. And then now I have a shirt that's a much better much better representation of a shirt than the square that I had at the beginning. So that's the pen tool. Is the easiest way to make things. And then you can also like make new shapes. So if I wanted to make some polka dots, I could grab a shirt, or I could grab a color over here, right? Grab a shape like that, drop it on there, and now you can see that that ellipse is on top. And then the cool thing is I could just copy that. So if I hit Command C and then Command V, now I've got another one, Command V, another one. And I can make a ton of, like, I can just copy and paste these shapes all over the place, and I can alter them if I want to. So I can adjust them. This will help you rotate. Oh no, you have to go over here where the edge. You can see that the handle turns like a kind of has a like a curve to it, and that means you can rotate your shape. But anyway, so now all those things are in front of this thing, and if I wanted to, I could select this one. So I could just grab it here, and then I could go Control, and I could say go to Arrange, and I could say Bring to Front, and now it'll cover all of those polka dots I made, right? Or I can do the same thing and go to Arrange and say Send to the Back, and it'll kick it all the way to the back. So now all that is on my one layer there, and you know, I can turn that whole layer on and off to see the preview, and I can look at what it looks like underneath. So this is the basis of building shapes that will help you create your playing card. So I'll keep going with some more advanced stuff now, but this is the gist of how we would do it.